Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Tempe Hearing Officer meeting for Tuesday, June 6, 2017. Today's meeting is called to order. Good afternoon, my name is David Williams. I am the Hearing Officer for the City of Tempe, and the Hearing Officer is authorized by Arizona Revised Statute and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code, and the Hearing Officer has the duty to carry out the provisions and intent of the City of Tempe General Plan and Zoning and Development Code, and is granted the authority to conduct public hearings to review and either approve, continue, deny, or approve with conditions several types of cases and applications, which include use permits, variances, and property abatements. On today's modified agenda, we have 7 items to be heard. They consist of a set of meeting minutes from our last meeting, 2 abatement cases, 3 use permit cases, and 1 review for compliance with a set of conditions for related use permits and use permits. Agenda item number 2, if you're here for that, the LaFrance property abatement will not be heard today. It's been withdrawn because the property is in compliance, as well as item 4A, the Reese property over on Spence Avenue has also been withdrawn because that property has recently been brought into compliance. So if you're here for either 2 or 4A, those have been taken care of and they will not be heard today. As a hearing officer, I've reviewed carefully the City of Tempe Community Development Department report on each of the items that's being considered at the meeting today, and I used that information in that report during our deliberations and discussions. And additionally, I have driven by each of these sites that are on the agenda today, each of these properties, so I can have understanding of the as-built conditions out there and in the immediate vicinity, including the neighboring properties. If you are an applicant or interested citizen, when your request is called on the agenda or when you wish to address the hearing officer, please step up to the microphone at the front of the room and state your name and city of residence. If you are any person other than the applicant, please complete a white speaker card, and those are available on the table next to the podium, and hand that to staff when you approach the podium to speak. You are given about 3 minutes to complete your statement and speaking. Any person who is aggrieved by a decision of the hearing officer may file an appeal, and that needs to be done within 14 calendar days after the hearing officer has made a decision. So as such, the deadline for filing appeals for decisions that are made today is 3 p.m. on June 20th, 2017. That appeal deadline is 3 p.m. June 20th, 2017. Those appeals, if any, of the decisions of the hearing officer are either heard by the Board of Adjustment or the Development Review Commission, whichever body is appropriate to the type of case that's being appealed. In the case of an abatement, if the property owner fails to file an appeal or fails to bring the property into compliance prior to that date, that appeal date, the code violations that will be addressed during the public hearing today will be abated by the City of Tempe. I'd like to introduce a few folks today. Over to my right, your left, is Steve Abrahamson, Principal Planner, Diane McGuire, Administrative Assistant, and Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner, your City of Tempe staff, excuse me. Regarding agenda items, let's go ahead and get started. First item on our agenda today is number 1. It's the meeting minutes from our last meeting of May 17th. I've reviewed all 14 pages of those minutes and they are hereby approved. As we mentioned, item 2 was taken off the agenda, so we're going to move right over to item 3. This is an abatement case. It is case number, it's a request to approval to abate public nuisance items at the Hazelton property. This is case CE 17-1667. It's located at 1223 South Maple Avenue. The applicant is the City of Tempe, Mr. Lara Reyes.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Andres Lara Reyes with the City of Tempe Code Compliance Division. I'm here to request an 180-day abatement of the property at 1223 South Maple Avenue, Tempe, A5281. The property has been in violation for over 3 months. This is for over-high grass and weeds. I sent several notices to the owner. No mail has been returned, and I'm just asking for approval today.
Have there been any recent contact with the property owner in the last week, 2 weeks?
No, the last 4 years, this property's been out of
Okay.
compliance.
Yeah, I
At
remember
least
this
twice a year.
case. Uh-huh. This one's been kind of a career problem for the city and the neighbors. Thank you, Mr. Larios. Is there anyone in the audience here today wanting to speak on agenda item number 3? This is request to approve public abatement on the Hazelton property. Not seeing anybody and understanding that it's a nuisance to the neighbors, having seen the property today personally and observed those conditions, I do approve your request for a 180-day open abatement, and thank you for your work on this
Thank you.
case. Next on today's agenda is item number 4. This is a request approval to abate public nuisance items at the Adwaka Holdings LLC property, hope I didn't butcher that name, CM 170112, located at 6420 South Ash Avenue. The applicant is the city of Tempe. Ms. Wozniak.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Amy Wozniak. I'm a code inspector with the City of Tempe Code Compliance Division. And I'm requesting a 180-day open abatement for the property of 6420 South Ash Avenue here in Tempe, based on the fact that I've sent several violation letters to the property owner. On March 27th of this year, I spoke with the property owner after I sent a violation letter saying that, I would, he'd be written a citation. And when I spoke to him, he said he would clean it up. I gave him an extension, and he still did not clean it up. I received additional anonymous complaints for the property. The property owner was issued a citation, and he failed to appear on that citation. Therefore, I posted a notice to abate the property. The property consists of uncontrolled grass and weeds throughout the vacant lot, and there is a dead tree on the east side of the property that needs to be removed. The property owner has made no attempt to reach compliance in this case, and the property continues to deteriorate as time goes on. With that said, Your Honor, I thank you for your consideration in this matter.
Excellent. So you had no recent contact, and when was the date, approximate date this was cited?
When he was cited,
You're right.
it would have been probably the first week in April, around then.
Early April? Yeah, because I noticed you spoke with him, you said on the 27th of March.
And then I gave him an
Did
extension.
he indicate he was going to take care of it when you
He
spoke to him?
said he had the landscapers coming out on that Friday, and nobody came out.
Okay, so
Nobody's
there-
been out since, actually.
Okay. And I see it is Adaka. Looks like we have it wrong on our slide. Just to correct that. Anything else?
No.
Okay, I do have once you have a seat, I may need to call you back up.
Okay.
I do have a speaker card on this case from Aaron Carson. Come on up and welcome. Thanks for coming today.
You're welcome. I am Aaron Carson, the managing member of Adaka Holdings. I did receive her notice and one prior to that we hired the same landscaping company that I tried to get to do it the second time that didn't show up. In my research on the property, I would say probably 70% of these weeds are on your property and not ours. Our property line is about, I'd say 3 feet back from the sidewalk. And if you look at these pictures that were provided, the bulk of these weeds are in the property that belongs to the city of Tempe. I did pay my fine for that last notice that I got. In fact, I overpaid it by $30.
That April citation.
Yeah, the citation. Yeah, I paid it immediately. Yeah, they said it was $170. I paid that, then they sent me another bill for $30 on top of that, so I just paid that. I do have, by the way, we own this property and the property one block over on Maple. We recently have taken these through the city of Tempe for permitting for 2 industrial buildings. We recently just got those permits on both buildings. We will be addressing the dead tree and the monument signage, I guess, that's on the property that's within the 33-degree site.
Yeah.
So we're going to take care of that. As far as the weeds go, I mean, we can take care of the weeds again, but I'd like to leave the dead tree until we actually develop the property at a later date. We're going to start with the property on Maple, which is the smaller one, and then we're going to move to the larger property. But it will be addressed. This property has been vacant since 1989. That tree's been dead. We looked at this property at buying it back in 2009, that tree was dead, and nobody has done anything about it since then. So I don't see the all of a sudden urgency to remove the tree. But I have some stuff here even from the county recorder's office showing that the majority of these weeds that are in these pictures are not on our property, if anybody cares to look at it.
Hearing Officer Williams, would you
Yes.
like those up on the
Yes, please.
overhead?
Yes, please.
And I'm sure you have copies of the pictures where you can see the majority of the weeds.
I do have those pictures. I see weeds out on the sidewalk in the right-of-way, I presume.
Property lines.
Oh.
And that's actually from the county assessor's office.
Yeah. Okay, what you got?
What's that? Hey, there it is. The pink line shows the property line. The yellow line actually shows the fence that's on the property.
Can you orient us, which road is which?
The top is Guadalupe.
Okay,
To your right would be Ash.
okay, got it.
And then here's just something I printed out from the county recorder's office showing our actual property is in blue and purple is the other lot, which is not in question right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see there's quite a bit of dirt there that doesn't belong to us.
So in this picture, which one is the subject today? The one on
Blue one on your left.
my left, okay.
Yep.
Anything else you wanted to present today, Mr. Carson?
No, not unless you need to see I agree, there's weeds on the property, but the majority of them's in the easement area. The 2 mesquite trees do need to be trimmed. We will address the dead fir tree when we develop because it's in the way. And that's about all I got for now.
Okay, and you understand the city's received complaints regarding the state of the property? Are you aware of that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Apparently we have. I'm going to ask the staff back up to talk to me a little bit about it. And so you're telling today at the hearing you're intending to do some tree maintenance, clean up the tall grass and weeds, but not intending to address the dead tree?
Correct. Because the price that they've given for all this, $2,250 to clean some weeds and take down a tree, is egregious.
Mm-hmm. So you'd rather do it yourself than have the city do it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Wozniak, a couple questions for you. Tell me about complaints, how recently and number of complaints.
I don't have the date of the complaint. I actually talked to the complainant that was out there. He didn't give me his name, but he was upset with the property, took a picture, and I said, basically he didn't need to do it. I was already on it, actually getting ready to abate it, but he turned it in anyways. Just so you know, this property, he is saying where the property lines, but a property owner is responsible for everything up to the curb line when cleaning in the right-of-way and the easement.
Beat me to that question. So he may or may not be. Is he not aware?
Well, he's cleaned it up before for me in the past.
Right.
His other property actually is very clean, so I don't know why this one goes the way it goes. He does have one like 2 properties over, and it's actually very clean. So why this one goes like this, I'm not sure.
Right. So what's the biggest concern in your perspective as an inspection person? What's out there in the right-of-way and what's most visible? Is the tree your bigger concern of everything that's out there?
It could, it could be a fire hazard. It's a dead tree. It's just dead wood. The weeds obviously are a fire hazard this time of year. There is a bus stop there where people smoke, so you'd have that issue as well. And I've had complaints where the bushes that are right along the right-of-way, right by the sidewalk, get so tall it causes an obstruction for traffic traveling eastbound on Guadalupe Way towards Ash and beyond.
Okay. Got it. Okay, thanks you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience who wanted to speak on agenda item 4, Adaka Holdings abatement case? Mr. Carson, can I speak with you again for a minute? Did you catch that information that the property owners are responsible for the right-of-way adjacent to their property out to the
Unaware of
curb
that.
line? Do you understand that?
I was unaware of it, but I understand it now.
Okay. You're going to develop this particular property. You said you're working on development plans or development approvals.
It's permit ready.
It is permit ready.
Yeah, it was just permitted like 2-3 weeks ago.
What's your development schedule, or construction schedule, or demolition schedules? I'm trying to get at the tree timing issue, how
For
long you
this
need
one,
to get.
it's going to be much later in the year. We're starting with the smaller building first on Maple. So this one will probably be towards the end of the year.
So can you get that tree out of there by December 31st?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Do that. And I'll take care of the weeds right away.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to approve this abatement, but I'm going to modify it somewhat, staff, so jump in if you have any concerns. He's intending to clean up the weeds and trim the trees and do everything but the tree, is my understanding, and do that within the next 2 weeks until your appeal date. Okay, so please, I'm going to approve the abatement for those items, Ms. Wozniak. Defer abatement on the tree until December 31st or bring it back to me for further action. It doesn't seem like it's not adjacent to any structures that I could tell, so I think it's okay, and the site's to be redeveloped or developed. So I think, in my opinion, we're good there. Any questions about that? Is that understandable? Come on up.
I just want to clarify, he has to have it cleaned up within the next 2 weeks, did you say?
Right.
Okay.
For the grass, not the tree, but the other items. The weeds removed.
And the tree will
including-
wait till the 31st of December?
Right.
All right.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Just to recap for the record, the request for approval to abate public nuisance items is approved as an open 180-day abatement. It is modified to not include the mature tree, and that is, abatement on that is deferred till December 31st or returned to the hearing officer. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming today, and good luck with your project. Okay, that was agenda item 4. Let's go on to number 5. And this is a request for the review of previously assigned conditions of approval for the Dog and Pony Brew Company. This is case PL 140471. The location is 922 West First Street. The applicant is David Arntzey. I think, I hope we didn't butcher that too bad. Let's do the staff report. Mr. Abrahamson.
Good afternoon, Hearing Officer Williams. Steve Abrahamson, City of Tempe Planning. The case before you is actually a review of 5 use permits that were approved back in February 17th, in fact, of 2015. This is GID zoning along, it's number 3. Yeah. One moment, please.
Yeah, no problem. Can we go to happy hour while you do that? I think it's happy hour.
Yeah, it's Dog and Pony. Okay. As I was stating, the property is in the General Industrial District, north side of First Street, just to the east of Hardy Drive. The use permits that were approved back in 2015 were for the following, and I do need to read these into the record, so please bear with me. They were a use permit to allow a brewery in the General Industrial District, a use permit to allow outdoor seating, an outdoor seating patio in the General Industrial District, a use permit for outdoor vending, and in this particular case, in the form of food truck service, a use permit for live entertainment, and lastly, a use permit standard for a 25% reduction of the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 3/4 feet. And what that is the building that can be closer to the street than would normally be provided for under the code. One of the conditions of approval back in February of 2015 was that the applicant was to return in February of 2016 to review the use permits to assure that there is compliance with the conditions of approval. In that they didn't open quite on time, it was delayed until today. This was the earliest potential time for this to be heard by you, Mr. Williams. And there's only been a couple, or actually one issue, one complaint, 2 issues. We received the complaint this morning, and that complaint, or those complaints were, 1, the parking along First Street at times is difficult for the residents who reside on the south side of First Street. They might have an event or a very popular happy hour, let's say, at 5 o'clock, and folks get home at 6, they can't find a parking space. It's on-street parking, it's not reserved. And it is my understanding that these properties on the south side of First Street have nothing but on-street parking. They don't have parking on-site. The second complaint from the same individual was with respect to the noise that emanates from the property. It was of his opinion that there was an outside, in fact, I'll read it to you directly. The music item is tolerable but needs to be confined to the inside of the building at all times. The sound system that extends out to the front of the building should be turned off when no patrons are there, which would result in less annoyance for the residents. I don't know what exactly it is that's on the outside of the building, perhaps a speaker, but there does seem to be a concern that could be resolved here at this hearing. And I also would be remiss if I didn't indicate that we received no issues from the police department. They do have a security plan for the project, and other than a simple call for service over a non-issue item, in fact, let's see what it was, a suspicious person on site having to do nothing with the operation of the business. There are no concerns from the police department. I am open to any questions you may have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Abrahamson. So to kind of clarify, we're not back here because there's a violation or something. We're back here because there was a requirement to come back and have a rehearing or revisit things.
That
check
is
in.
correct, Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Williams. Normally, it is 6 months, but they didn't open after.
Yeah, and thank you, staff, for getting me the email from the resident. That was very helpful. So I'd like to follow up with you. So I noticed in the original conditions of approval that there was no approval for outdoor music of any type. So whether it's a mounted speaker or something that's dragged out on a long wire, is that permitted under that condition?
No, sir, it is not. In fact, we normally have a condition whereas we ask the property owner to keep the doors closed in the event that there be noise trespass. And in fact, with respect to a violation, it would have to exceed the noise code limits of, I believe, 60 dB at the property line, and that would be after 7 p.m., I believe. So there is some wiggle room here, but at the same time, they're not to have any speakers on the patio, and they really shouldn't have their doors open.
Okay. So to be to the letter of the law and to their conditions, no speakers outside, regardless of how loud it is at the property line. There could be noise at the property line because the music comes from inside the building to an open door or window, and so you can hear it at the street. And if that's the case, there's a limit on how loud that could be.
That is correct, Mr. Williams.
Got it. I think that's all I've got. I'll probably need to call you back up.
Very good.
Thank you for your report on this case. Okay, is the applicant here or a representative for item number 5, Dog and Pony Brewery, which actually has a different name on the building, the Shop Beer Company. If you go over there, that's what you see. Come on up. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you today?
Doing just fine.
Good. Just give us your name and whatever information you'd like to present.
So, David Arntz, owner of the shop, beer company. Believe it or not, Dog and Pony was used by someone else in Washington, so we relinquished the name as a courtesy.
Wow.
Imagine
Interesting.
that, two people with that name. You know, one thing I heard on that that I just wanted to come up and address was the concept of speakers on the patio. The discussion at the original approval was to do special event permitting. So if we had a big festival-style event, something like a Oktoberfest-style
Right.
thing, then we would get a separate permit for something like that. But as an agreement in this room, when we originally got approval for the front patio, we agreed that we wouldn't put any TVs or speakers in that particular portion of the building. But I think what I had heard there was that it's not customary to have speakers in like a patio.
It can be if it's specifically approved that way. In this case, it was specifically not approved that way. And Mr. Hapenson, jump in if I'm misstating that. So it's
That's
something
what-
you could request in the future, and you can certainly do it through a special event permit as well, either way.
Am I hearing it right that you're saying that no speakers on a patio? Because that's not the case as it currently is or has been for a year.
Not without a special, specific approval for those, for outdoor speakers that are
Yeah, so
separate.
the speaker orientation that we currently have is what was approved in this room before we
Okay.
opened. Yeah.
The
So we haven't-
speaker
we haven't
position
needed-
complies, they're indoors, you're saying?
The setup that we currently have was negotiated here last time we were here. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So other than that, I've been really pleased about how it has gone. I haven't received, nor anyone on my team, any complaints from the neighbors. I mean, one of the original concerns was debris or trash left along First Street, which has been a non-issue.
Do you guys patrol that street at all, or just, do you send staff out there to pick up?
Yeah, I mean,
after
we
shift
have
or
staff
anything?
trained in a customary way for tap room, and we're always keeping an eye out for things.
Yeah.
But we're not really like a Mill Avenue style tap room, where it's more of a showroom than anything else. So.
Well, congratulations on the time you've been in business and the lack of any major problems.
Thank you.
Because you're across the street from residences, and that can be pretty touchy. So by and large, I'm perceiving a good operation. I haven't seen any trash complaints, but it's something I've observed personally, as patrons can sometimes drop things out of their cars. Do you have any other information you wanted to present today?
No, I'm just here to be available.
Okay, I may need to call you back up. I got a couple folks in the audience who want to speak. May have some questions for you to follow up. Thank you for being here. Okay, I do have a couple speaker cards. I'd like to hear from those folks and anybody else who wants to speak on this case. The first one I have is Susan Minchuk. Is she here? Thank you for coming today, and welcome.
Thank you for letting me speak to you. I'm Susan Minchuk, and I live in Tempe, and we are owners of the property across the street from the Dog and Pony. Can you turn that on again? Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see exactly which one you are, so I know where you guys are.
Oh, sure. Right in the middle of the block. Right there.
Okay.
Right across the street. And I would like to talk about use permits for the Dog and Pony, now known as something else. There were many conditions for them getting this permit
Right.
to convert an industrial area in a residential zone into a tasting room, bar, music, venue. I have some questions regarding some of the changes that they have done. I'm going to put a different picture on here. Maybe I'll get it in the right spot. Okay, this is an old aerial view of First Street, Hardy. Dog and Pony is up in here.
Yeah, that one. There you go.
And this is a vacant lot, partly owned by the city. that was fenced at one time with no parking allowed other than in the paved area by the city. So when they originally heard this, this was one of the slides that I presented. This is what the property looked like in 2015, before they had anything going on there. And this is another view. This is a no parking sign on First Street, on the north side of First Street, right in front of the subject property. This is them here, or what used to be them. Sorry, where are my pictures? Okay, again, another old photo. This is what it looked like before they got approval and went in there. So this was industrial. As you can see, it's a very narrow driveway, and there's no parking on that side of the street. The only parking is across the street. Well, this past Saturday, they had an event. And this is what it looked like. They had all of the parking blocked off in their lot. It was totally fenced off. There was a band outside. And this was full of people who all parked on the north side of the street, where it says no parking. And there's a fire hydrant there. But they were still parked in front of the fire hydrant. This is right in front of their property. I'll blow it up a little bit for you, too. So you can see there's a lot of people there, and there's no parking, and it was outside. On the north side of the street, sorry, this was taken into the sun, so you can't quite tell, but you can see there's cars parked there.
What was this? What was the date? This was this past?
Saturday.
Thank you.
This past Saturday.
Thank you.
This past Saturday. This picture is of a truck that's parked in the bus stop, which has a little no parking sign on it, and the whole street is no parking, but the people are parked there. This picture is the other angle, from Hardy looking east on First Street toward Tempe Butte. Again, you can see there's parking, people parked on both sides of the street, even though the north side on the left, there's no parking allowed. This is the vacant lot
Right.
with no parking allowed.
Full of cars.
Full of cars. This is the sign on that lot that says, no public parking, employee parking only. Sorry, couldn't come out too good. But there's no public parking allowed. And there's cars all through this lot. It's dirt, it's dusty, really not conducive to a neighborhood. And another view of all these cars in rows and rows in this lot right here next to Hardy. It's nothing to do with their property, but everybody parked there anyway because there were so many people. So I'm going to bring this picture back. With all these people here, this was somebody getting a wristband. Part of their conditions for getting the use permit was no outside entertainment. And there was a band, there was a truck across the street. Oops, sorry. This is one of the trucks that was across the street. Bud Light. They're a brewery. Why do they need a Bud Light truck out there? And that truck was there at 6:30 in the evening. And guess what? He was still there at 10 o'clock at night. And that's on the south side of the street where parking is allowed, except this truck is parked right by no parking starts here, from here to the corner of Beck, which is the next block east of Hardy. And yet in front of this truck are two other cars parked again, in the no parking zone.
Ms. Minchuk, your time is going to run out.
Okay,
If there are
I'm
other
gonna-
issues,
we'll
you ought to
see.
address those
Okay.
before your time
That-
is over.
At night, at 10 o'clock at night, the Bud Light truck was still there, and one of the cars was still there. So this is the sound company that was there, SLFX. And they have all this equipment, including barricades and everything else. They were parked right behind that Bud Light truck. So my comment is that they violated their own permits, the special use permits. They had more than 46 people there in this area. They had no parking for them. They had live entertainment outside. They have violated all of those permits that they're asking, that they're saying that they didn't.
Okay, right. Thank you for your comments. And yes, this looks to me like a special event that should have had a particular approval for, not so much that it was not what they're approved for. It was beyond that, and I'm talked to staff and the applicant here about that event subsequent to your speaking. So
In addition, I called the police department today to find out what I needed to know, what I needed to do to get the copies of the reports of any complaints. Well, first of all, you need 7 days, which wouldn't work for a hearing today, and I explained that to them. They told me there have been 3 police complaints. I don't know what they were. I know that only one was cited in the report. The other 2, I don't know when they happened, but they said all 3 complaints were within the past year.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
time and for bringing photos. It's helpful.
Yes. It was very enlightening, to say the least.
I have another speaker card. Our next speaker is Larry Minchuk. And then if there's anyone after Larry, you're welcome to come on up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
Larry Minchuk, also a resident in Tempe, and I've owned the property directly across the street, 815, 821, and 827 West First Street for over 40 years. So obviously I've gotten to know the area very well, know the tenants personally, and the one thing I've learned about tenants, typically speaking, unless they've got a maintenance problem, they contact the manager, or sometimes they'll contact me if my manager's out of town, which is very few times. But if there's any other issues, typically they'll contact either my manager and want us to address it. Well, not only Saturday night, but a few other times, there was some complaints about not being able to have their guests who come over on the weekends. It's usually a Monday through Thursday, it's not an issue. But the weekends, the parking in front on First Street, which has already been elaborated on, is the case. There is definitely a tough coexistence between the business and then our parking for our guests on the weekends and the evening. The noise issue, for the most part, they do cut it back fairly early in the evening. But I've had a few complaints from some of my tenants, and basically my manager just went across the street and just said, hey, rather than calling the city or calling the police, wasting, good police time. And they've been really good. They've been really good and very cooperative about making sure the noises turn out. But again, with the event that was Saturday night, that really drew, I had 5 tenant complaints. 2 about the 6 o'clock hour, and the others were closer to the 10 o'clock hour. And I'm going to give you a sample of my call into the Tempe Police Department, okay? Very interesting. I called, said who I was, the fact that I was the property owner, and I'm calling on behalf of my tenants who live in 821 or 827. And these folks go to bed typically 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, because you have to get up at 4 a.m. because one of them is a construction worker, another one works at a bakery, and the other one has to travel from where they live. They work at a Goodwill, and they have to travel all the way to Northeast Mesa via a bus. So they all have to get up early, so that means they have to get to bed early. And they called me and just said, listen, this situation across the street, I thought this wasn't supposed to be this loud. I said, that's what I thought too. So when I called the police first thing they said, well, It's not a priority. They use that to me, both phone calls that I made, the earlier one and the later one. It's not a priority. And the first time, I wasn't sure about the illegal parking going on. I just thought, well, maybe they're parking in front of our parking legally in front of our building. So I took it upon myself to drive down there. I live about 5 miles away. I went down there and I started taking some pictures. And those pictures showed people illegally parked not only in the bus stops, but they were parked in the red zone where the mailboxes are, okay? And then earlier, Susan showed you the picture of right there where the fire plug is, and there's another fire plug down the street a little bit. There was no concern about parking, because if there was a fire that night, anywhere in that neighborhood, it would have been a problem. And so I'm here, just saying that, I think, I'm not trying to put anybody out of business. I'm glad that they're successful. I'm a businessman myself, so I'm not here to put anybody out of business. But if you're going to be a good neighbor, let's talk about the future and how we're going to go forward to be a good neighbor. That's what my concern is. Some of my tenants actually they go across the street and they go have a drink over there, and that's fine, and they like the place. And so I'm not complaining. I don't want anybody to go out of business. That's not what I'm here about. But let's be a good neighbor. Let's try to figure out a way how we're going to go forward. If they're going to do special events, don't tax the whole area. And then what I'm really upset about is the reaction I got from our own police department. I didn't call 911. I'm not going to do that. I called a regular phone number. And this was the response that I got. And then I went there again. Like I said, earlier in the evening, I went back later. I got pictures right here. If you want to see them, I'll show them to you. But the cars are all parked. 10 o'clock at night, they're still parked in no parking zones. And there's still cars parked in front of the fire plugs. The police never went out there to even bother to take a look. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
When you talked to TPD, were you calling them about noise or about illegal parking? What did they say was not a priority? Was the noise?
They said first they said the parking wasn't really a priority because we have more important things that we might have to try to cover for a Saturday night. And I said, okay, And then I said, well, the noise situation, as I'm driving, I'm coming, I live south of the 60. So I'm coming up Hardy Drive like I do a number of times. And as I got just north of 5th Street, I can already hear the music. As I got to 4th Street, it was louder. 3rd Street, 2nd Street,
Sure.
1st Street, it's very loud. And going the other direction, towards downtown, I'm going past Beck and Farm or whatever the streets are back there, past where Arizona Refrigeration is. I can still hear the music. And again, that's a little bit more cranked up than what they're permitted to do.
Yes.
And if they're going to get a special permit for anything in the future, we need to figure out how this is all going to coexist in this neighborhood. Because there's an issue with the neighbors there. I mean, okay, we could put up with it maybe once, okay. But if this is going to continue on a monthly basis, they're going to keep, them, as they grow, they're going to want to get a special permit. Hey, look, we did this big blowout party. Let's do another one and another one. It's going to tax the neighborhood. And again, what I'm concerned about, the people that come to this establishment don't care about the neighborhood, park wherever the heck they want to, urinate by Arizona Refrigeration. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. The guys were underneath the pine tree on the grass. 3 guys were out there. I didn't take a picture. That was one I was not going to take a picture of. And then a couple of the guys were between my building, 827, and the next door, 833. They're back there by this big tree, and they're doing business out there. And I'm going like, obviously they didn't have enough bathrooms to support the crowd either.
That's one of the concerns with the special use permit is that the facilities...
Any questions from me?
Well, thanks again for being here and presenting the information. It is helpful. You do, and I think Sue, right? Susan acknowledged that that's public parking on that street.
Yes.
So they have every right to park legally.
We understand that.
I am
We just have to
disappointed.
find out a way to coexist.
It's disappointing the gross disregard for parking laws where we're blocking red curb and blocking a hydrant is certainly a safety concern to me and the city. And I thank you for taking the time to call TPD and let them know how they handle it. That's their business, but I appreciate you doing your civic duty to report the violations that may be a public safety hazard.
Thank you.
Yes, I will go. Anyone else who wants to speak on this case, agenda item number 5, dog and pony use permits, that it is possible for neighborhoods to work with the city to get some parking permitted along a public street. Understanding that your project doesn't have its own individual parking, that's a little unusual. I did see at least one of your residents come out of her
May I answer your question about that parking?
home, just a second, come out of her home and walk across the street and go in. So clearly the neighborhood enjoys the use of that as well. Responding to what the parking
This,
issue is?
this map here, could you put the light on this, or, oh, it's on there, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, property's right here, okay? All these fourplexes have individual parking. We all have carports, one space per unit. And then in between the buildings, we have a couple extra spaces. Well, the problem that every building on that side of the street, we have to house the big garbage containers. So that takes one of our parking spaces away for a guest, or in some cases, we have a few tenants who work construction. They have their work truck that they need to have available for their job, and they might have their personal car parked under the carport. So again, for all these years prior to this operation, we never had a problem. People can park in the front and go and do their thing.
Right.
But the last year, again, we're trying to coexist, and it's just become a problem just in the last year of the 40 years I've held the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there is potential relief for that available to you. The department here has a neighborhoods division, and you can talk to a woman, Shauna Warner, there about a permit parking setup and get some information. Her general number is 350-4311, and they can do a public parking permit program there if it meets certain criteria, and may provide you some relief. And certainly I understand somebody with a work truck, they need extra parking and would like to have it nearby. Again, it's public domain. So understood that, and then to kind of recap, an event is a different creature than what they were approved for. So it sounds to me like generally they're operating within their means, but the special event is clearly another thing altogether. So there was no one else in the audience to speak on agenda item 5. Okay. Mr. Abrahamson, so add anything you'd like, but in terms of the pictures I've seen and the scale of the event, is that not just a clear example of a special event, and why we have a special event permitting process is to allow those type of things on a specific date? Under certain conditions, including adequate parking and adequate bathrooms, would normally be something considered when a special event permit is reviewed.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Williams. Yes, that appeared to be a special event. There is a special office here in Tempe. It's a special events office. Their number, for the record, is 480-350-5180. They are in charge of any special event in the city. That would include having a special event in Tempe Beach Park or Kiwanis Park, or businesses throughout the city that might even close down the street and have a special event. And I'm pretty confident that's what the Shop Brewery did, Dog and Pony. There are conditions of approval for a special event. They have to go through fire and PD, so PD definitely has a say in what happens on the property, certainly especially if they have liquor, and they do. But beyond that, if there are any concerns, and you've had these concerns, I would contact the special events office and let them know what they are, so that when they come back for another special event, they're told up front, we've had violations in the past. It might even make it a little more difficult for them to get a special event, but certainly it would be outlined up front what they need to do to make their next special event operate correctly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arts, you should come back on up. Okay, so again, good job, generally speaking, on the business and success. That's good to hear. So so you've heard what's been talked about. Sounds like all these negative things were related to an event versus your day-to-day operation. Did you know a special event permit was available for activities like that?
Yeah, and so there's a few things I think it's worth addressing.
Yeah, please do.
So the parking along First Street, it was noted that you see on the north side here, it was, at the time of our original approval, a no parking zone, and the pictures that were shown were accurate at the time, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. Once we got open, C of O, we inquired with the city about, the street is parked for street front parking the entire way. And they said, apply for it, and then we'll review, and they granted that. And so we got parking approved on the north side of First Street. In terms of the event, we were hosting for Craft Brewers Foundation was doing a benefit. We did get a license for that. We did provide 7 additional bathrooms.
The Guild? Is that the Craft Brewers Guild? Or?
It's a sister organization through the Guild.
I see.
Yeah. So that's Craft Brewers Foundation. So we played host for a charity event. Bathrooms were provided. Security was provided. It's disappointing to me to see a photograph of a car in front of a fire hydrant, but I can assure you we had 4 security staff patrolling that to make sure those things weren't the case. We recently did an event in collaboration with Tempe Leadership, at which point that lot toward the it's the hard northeast corner.
West, yeah.
Just, 2 lots west. The property directly adjacent to us is vacant.
The west?
Correct.
Right.
And so by agreement, we parked some overflow parking there in an effort to alleviate any concerns with the neighbors. And of course, prior to this moment today, I've never once had a person come over and tell me there was a problem. My wife and I went around and put placards on, cut little half sheets of paper on every single door and said, we're having an event, we don't expect problems, but if there's any, but we do expect more attendance than normal. If there's any problem, we have paid a person to stand out front, and if there's a car in the way or to find parking to accommodate the residents of that thing. The phone call to the PD, an officer did come by at 8:30, at which point he spoke to my bar manager, and he noted, no noise problem, no parking problem, I'm here, but I'm driving away.
Really?
With
an outdoor band? He said that?
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess he's used to those outdoor bands.
I think the description of the noise is grossly overstated. I think it is also worth mentioning on these particular conditions that the source of the complaints, I do believe we've been in here 5 times. I am under the opinion that it doesn't matter what we're doing, we're going to keep getting complaints from the 2 that spoke today.
So you said you put notices out to the neighbors that the event was coming?
Yes.
And you had a phone number on there to call if there was a concern?
My personal cell phone.
And no one called to complain on using that notice? That's interesting.
No one.
So you got a guy out there. Looks like there was some illegal parking. Of course, you guys aren't the cops to do anything about it, but they didn't notice any concerns with how people were parking?
No, very concerned, and I think that the one photograph that shows it in front of the fire hydrant is very much temporary. But every other parking space on the north side of First is, as far as we know, completely permissible.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, to be clear, in the future, you must apply for a special use permit or special event permit to be able to hold that, to do anything outside of what your use permits allow. So outdoor speakers, outdoor bands, blocking off your parking lot, those type of things are in excess of what's permitted day to day. They can be approved, and usually are, and as long as they get properly planned for, not a problem. But when they're not, we run into some of these. This is common to other places in the city as well. It's not particularly unique, and I think it can be adequately addressed through that. So you need to be aware of obtaining that approval prior to your events, and I'm not sure they take very long to obtain, but they'll work with you on parking, bathroom facilities, traffic control. Dust control can be a problem too when you're using a vacant lot or unpaved lot for parking, and they'll want you to address that as well. So again, I think all solvable issues, but work with the city closer on your events if you would. And you said parking on the north side of First is now permitted by and large?
Yeah, and all the signage has been changed.
Okay.
I have a
Okay.
photo of the street.
Susan, if you'd like to come on back up to the microphone, I'll give you about another minute, and then we're going to wrap up.
I'm so surprised.
Go ahead and
here.
state your name again for the
Sure.
record.
I'm Susan Minchuk, and I brought you some other photos of First Street, and I've got one other one.
Are they related to parking or
This
what?
is related to the parking on June 3rd at 6:30 PM. This photo, this is part of the street. Right here is a no parking sign. None of the signs have been removed. If the city has decided that they let people park there, they didn't remove any of the signs.
I'm going to ask staff to follow up on that and get that clarified, because that is quite confusing, because certainly your residents may like to park on the north side for convenience and should be aware that that's permitted. That's
And
interesting.
that no parking is right in front of the dirt lot.
Right.
So-
Okay.
And
That's good to
as far
know.
as it is having security there, this photo, there's no security there. There's somebody getting a wristband. I don't know if that's the security person there or
Well,
not.
items related to a special event will be addressed through that process, and
That's fine.
so going forward, there will be a list of requirements. Mr. Abramson, the special event approval, is there notice to adjoining property owners for those? Is there some way a member of the public can access the permit restrictions or requirements to know what was being allowed, if they're just an interested citizen or a neighbor?
Hearing Officer Williams, thank you. I wish I could answer this question, your question, more adequately. I do know that the agenda for the Special Events Committee is online and is publicly advertised. However, I don't know whether or not the adjacent property owners or those property owners that own land or property within a certain perimeter are notified by mail. I can't answer that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. And thank you also for coming back on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Arts, I got another question for you or two. I do appreciate that you took the time, effort, and expense to get notices out to neighbors that this event was coming up. Was that the day of the event, the day before? Do you remember how early those went out?
I believe we papered doors on either Thursday or Friday, and the event was on Saturday.
Okay. Would you be willing, if folks gave you the contact information, email or mailing address, if they said, I'd like to be notified when you're going to do a special event, would you be willing to keep that list and send them notice so they get that notice and then could directly communicate with you and hopefully avoid TPD not responding to them? Because it seems like you're very responsive, where maybe TPD doesn't have the time or manpower on some of these issues.
Absolutely.
Okay, so will you get that information from the Minchucks? Keep that, and if anyone else needs that notice, whether it's an email, something easy and convenient for you, but gives them direct notice, because they may not get it from the city. I don't think they will in a special event, but that's their major concern. That sounds like you're a good neighbor otherwise, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a request, so there's some items to address in the public record for these use permits. So to end the drama, I'm going to approve what's being requested today. There are conditions that stick with it, but again, what we spent all the time on today and energy has been special events and the repercussions and impacts of special events and the need to administer them properly, because they can be done properly and minimize the negative issues. So the request for The review for compliance with the conditions approved for 4 use permits, operation of the brewery, outdoor patio use, outdoor vending use, food truck, live entertainment, indoors, and a use permit standard for front yard setback. Mr. Abrahamson, is the finding a finding of compliance? Is it a finding of approval? What do we need on the record here?
Finding of compliance to this point in time.
Okay.
And and anything else that you would want to add on to that.
Okay. So, so the finding of the permit of the hearing officer is a finding of compliance with the use permit and the use permit criteria, which I'll run through in a minute. What we have also found today is special event has been conducted without that approval, and you're directed to obtain that approval going forward. But you are found in compliance, and congratulations on that. There's some criteria I'll run through here. Any significant increase in vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic is a criteria. You know, they have 24 parking spaces. They have served large truck traffic. Also, the proposed site has 29 spaces and designed primarily for standard vehicles, so there was a change in the parking style back when this was approved. In terms of vehicular pedestrian traffic, the site is served by transit, and that is a positive for sure, and it has bicycle parking. The proposed use will have longer hours on the weekends, having more traffic. The proposed building did not increase in size. It does accommodate the occupancy of 46 people. Patio additions will increase the utility of the site and potential for more traffic, and the applicant is adding safe pedestrian path from the street to the buildings. The proposed brewery with outdoor patios, a food truck, and live entertainment will increase both vehicular and pedestrian traffic to the site, not viewed as in excess when not a special event, but normally not in excess for the zoning and the surrounding area. So given this daily operation, the increase in vehicles and pedestrian is acceptable. It's the special events that are not. So this is complied with. Nuisance arising from odor, dust, gas, and noise. They have conducted themselves in a manner that has lived within this criteria by not having outdoor noise. Speakers are inside. Occasionally they can be heard. We've discussed today the need to comply with that and keep speakers inside. That we understood there would be more noise as an approval of this use permit. Was not anticipated to produce nuisances out of character or in excess with other uses, and again, outside of the special event, did not do that. This criteria is found to be met as well. Contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or the downgrading of property values, and the use is not in conflict with the goals, objectives for rehabilitation, redevelopment, conservation of the city's adopted general plan. And certainly, you know, improving properties, investing in them, and having successful businesses is what the city is all about, but we all need to be able to live together in harmony. So the brewery with the outdoor patios revitalizes the area, the landscaping, creates a much more attractive street front than, say, the properties immediately west of here or near here that are not being used and are not nearly as well maintained. There were no known degradations to property valuation as of today, with the revitalization of an industrial site to the brewery with a tasting room. So recent investments in this location and others have resulted in larger revitalization. So it does contribute to a positive thing in the neighborhood is what I'm finding today. Compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. There are some concerns because we have residential across the street. The use of the industrial buildings for restaurant or bar uses has been supported in the past. There's been other conversions in the area, and a use permit for live entertainment was approved nearby on Farmer Avenue. These other businesses have done well in proximity to residential site. This site does well in proximity to residential normally. The proposed uses and structures are appropriate to the area as long as we operate within the use permit conditions. Number 5, adequate control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises. Again, a normal day-to-day, not an issue here. For special events, we need to have special arrangements for control of behavior and excessive traffic. The applicant will be required to maintain a site security plan. The existing access control will allow security of the north portion of the lot when the business is not open. The patio between the buildings is also secured after hours, and the live entertainment is to only be indoors. By conditions and existing city codes, the proposed brewery, tasting room, and patios and food truck will be controlled adequately to prevent nuisances to the general public, and that's really what we have found for 2 years or a year and a half, not a problem. So, as such, and with those criteria met, you're found to be in compliance. Please do take the special event impacts very seriously. Continue to be a good neighbor, and work with the city if you have any concerns. And for the neighbors, please contact the city, provided an avenue for direct contact to the owner, so you can be informed when he's going to do special events, and you can inform your own residents if you like, or bring your concerns to him about parking, pedestrian traffic, trespass, adequate bathroom facilities. Those are all important things. And thank you for your time coming today, and good luck with your continued business. Item number 6 on today's agenda is a request for approval of a use permit to allow a recycling center, that's a shredding facility for Iron Mountain Shredding. This is case PL 170072. It's at 2929 South Hardy Drive. The applicant's Vernon Anderson of VPA Architects. Mr. Jimenez, can we have a report?
Good evening, Hearing Officer Williams. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. Iron Mountain is proposing to operate a document shredding facility on the northeast corner of Hardy Drive and Fairmont Drive in the GID General Industrial District. The applicant, Vernon Anderson, indicates that the site was previously occupied by another document shredding operator, and that Iron Mountain plans to continue this type of use. It intends to replace the shredding equipment left behind by the previous tenant and replace it with new equipment, as well as a new exterior dust collector. The site is located on a site more than a quarter mile away from the nearest residential use. The exterior dust collector will be installed along the southeast portion of the building and screened with a 12-foot masonry and metal wall. To date, staff hasn't received any public input, and as indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for the use permit and supports this request subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. I did visit this site today. I understand this is a relocated external piece of equipment. It's now on the southeast part of the property. This is an industrial area. I understand there's been no complaints or public concerns about this application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is the applicant here today, our representative? Come on up, and thank you for waiting. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Vernon Anderson, architect, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And did you have any questions?
Not specifically. I think you're good to go. If you had any additional information you wanted to present or any concerns, have you seen the conditions of approval in the staff report, and do you have any questions about those conditions?
I do not have any questions.
Okay. Nor any, okay. Thanks for being here, and thank you for waiting. Is there anyone in the public, welcome to have a seat, anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak on agenda item 6, a use permit for the recycling center at 2929 South Hardy? There is no one here to speak on that case. Your request for use permit is approved. It's got some criteria. There are 4 conditions that go with it. There's some criteria regarding significant increase in pedestrian and vehicular traffic. The number of employees that are required to operate a shredding facility is less than any other use we've had in that area, and that's permitted by right. this criteria is satisfied. Excuse me. Number 2 is nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, glare, which certainly was something we looked at closely in this case with an outdoor piece of equipment. The shredding operation will take place in the building. The dust collector will be screened for sound and visual appearance using a tall masonry wall. I think it was taller than 6, right? It was
12 feet.
Yeah, so a 12-foot wall, excellent screening. Oh, there it is. I missed it. Therefore, we expect nuisance to be, that will not be a nuisance from those issues due to the way it's being designed. Contribution to deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading property values, which is in conflict with our goals, objectives, and our policies for rehab, redevelopment, and conservation from the city's adopted plans and general plan. This is an industrial area. This is an industrial use. It's more than a quarter mile from residences. We've satisfied this criteria, in my opinion. Number 4, compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. The site is like any other typical industrial use in the vicinity. The dust collector screening is similar in design to the existing facility, so it should blend in. And we have met this requirement as well. Number 5, adequate control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises, which can create a nuisance to the surrounding area. The mitigation measures for both sound and appearance exceed what has typically been allowed in this industrial area, so this criteria is easily met. So again, your request for use permit is approved, subject to the 4 conditions, and good luck with your business as well. Thank you for being here today. Excuse me. The next item today is agenda item 7. This is a request for approval of a use permit to allow vehicle rentals or moving trucks and trailers for AZ Fund Services, case PL 170122. And AZ Fund Services is located at 1938 East Broadway. The applicant is Tariq Cheney. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening, once again, Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. Arizona Fund Services operates a costume and party carnival equipment rental service establishment. They're located on the northeast corner of South Holbrook Lane and East Broadway Road in the GID, General Industrial District. The applicant, Tariq Cheney, is proposing to add a moving truck trailer rental service operation, which is ancillary to their primary use. This request is a result of a code violation for operating a vehicle rental facility without a use permit. Mr. Cheney is rectifying the violation by processing this use permit application. To date, staff has not received any public input, and as indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for the use permit and supports this request subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. So if this is approved, the violation issue goes away?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. That's what I was wondering. Thank you for your report. Is the property owner or representative of the business here today? Please come on up and welcome. Thanks for being here, and thank you.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tariq Cheney, a partner in ownership at Arizona Fund Services. I reside in Phoenix. We're just looking for the opportunity to rent trucks and trailers, use our parking lot to house those vehicles, and we need the permit to do so.
Very good. The staff has recommended approval of your permit request, and there are 10 conditions associated with that approval. Did you have any questions about those conditions? You understand them?
Yes. The one about about where they need to be parked. I had questions about that.
Item number 4, the rental fleet shall be parked on site within the parking lot area on the north end of the property. Is that the one?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there is it possible for at least one vehicle to be parked along the east portion of the lot? We feel that it would provide more visibility to potential customers. We don't see it as any type of nuisance to the community or to the neighbors. We just feel like it would be more beneficial if we were allowed to park at least one truck in that east lot, which would give it a little more visibility.
Right. Right, kind of using the vehicle to help advertise, if you will.
Yes,
Anything else?
I think so. Okay.
Today, I may need to call you back up, but thank you. Anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on agenda item 7, use permit for AZ Fund Services for vehicle rentals? I don't see anyone in the audience here to speak, anyone additional to speak on this case. Staff, the applicants requested modification of condition number 4. I understand that would bring an enforcement challenge for staff in terms of that. I believe the intent is to generally not, in the city of Tempe, use vehicles for advertising purposes or acting as signs. So that's probably where this came from, is to not promote that type of activity. Staff, you want to comment on that and your position with the request?
Thank you, Hearing Officer Williams. In fact, yes, you're spot on with that analysis. The fact that vehicles parked up close to the front do become signs if there is advertising on them. We do have code compliance review that sort of thing, and if they do see a violation, it does become a reason to cite the property, cite the owner. And so, as you also stated, it does become an enforcement issue. So it is staff's recommendation that we stick with what is stated in the report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Cheney, come on back up. I noticed that you're parking on the east side of the building is kind of segmented. There's maybe 3 spaces, one of which I parked in today, right up close to the street. And then there's another group of spaces farther north, a little farther away from the street.
Correct.
The exact reason you want to do this is exactly what the code doesn't want you to do, because of people using their trucks for excessive advertising. If you are willing to keep that truck to the north end of that east side, not in those front 3 spaces, so it's not right at the street, and of course it'd be better for you the closer to the street, I understand that. But we have a code to uphold and comply, and staff suggesting to me we not do this at all. I'm inclined to accept your request, but modify it if you'll keep it to the north half of that east bay of parking and not bring them up close to the street, understanding that the code just doesn't want us to do that, and we need to treat all businesses equally and not provide too many special exceptions. So if you're willing to do that, we'll move ahead. Okay, thanks again for coming. Thank you, staff, for your input on that as well, and I certainly understand the intent of our codes.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir.
One more concern. When the vehicles are returned by customers, they sometimes return them after hours when we're not there. So on occasion, I'm going to anticipate that we may come in some mornings and there might be more than one vehicle parked in that front east lot. And then I promise you that first thing we'll do is move them to the back.
Yeah, if they're, you get them out of there within an hour or so of opening business, you should be fine.
Okay.
If they sit there all day and you're going to write a complaint.
We'll do our best to tell them to return them to the back, but sometimes people
you should post a sign. I've seen other rental places do that. Post a sign that says, if you're returning a rental vehicle, please park in the rear of the building or in this designated area. And that should help you, because usually they don't have any direction where to do it. They may not follow that direction if it's in their contract or their paperwork, So I would ask you to post a sign outside, even if it doesn't have to be a real fancy or formal sign, but to let them know. Do they drop keys then when they, so is there a key drop location?
There's a key drop, it's at the front door, which
Okay,
is...
so at that front door
on
key
the
drop
east side.
location is where your sign on it be, says, please move the vehicle. And, you can say they may be assessed a fee if they don't do it, because if you get a fine, you're not going to be happy either.
Okay.
And knowing that the intent is to keep those things as far to the back as possible.
All right.
Any other questions?
Fair enough. No.
Okay.
No, sorry.
This use permit has some criteria for approval. Any increase in vehicular and pedestrian traffic that's significant. We don't see the traffic generated by the rental use as significant and different from the office and warehouse uses, which are allowed by right in this zone. This criteria is met. Number 2, nuisance from an odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare exceeding ambient conditions. None of those negative nuisance items are anticipated to be generated through a vehicle rental operation and nor to exceed existing ambient conditions. That criteria is met as well. Number 3, contribution to deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values, which is in conflict with our goals, objectives, and policies for rehab, redevelopment, conservation from the city's adopted plans and general plan. The use will provide a service that is in demand, obviously, and considering the site is surrounded by apartments, it's well suited for this neighborhood. That criteria is met. 4, compatibility with existing structures, surrounding structures. There's no elevation or site modifications to the buildings or the site are proposed. So this is and remains compatible with existing surrounding uses. Number 5, adequate control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises that can create a nuisance to the area and the public. The nature of vehicle rental operation is no different than the existing warehouse and retail. This criteria is met as well. This request for use permit is approved, subject to the 10 conditions, with a modification to condition number 4 that a maximum of 1 rental vehicle may be parked on the east side of the building at the north end of the parking bay. Thank you for your time today, and good luck with your business. I know I just made staff's job a little bit harder, and I will apologize now for that. But I appreciate your input on that case. We're going to move to agenda item 8. Does that sound right? Last but not least, request approval of a use permit to allow a drive-through restaurant for Valley Fair Shopping Center. It's a PAD, or PAD B, freestanding PAD, PL 170111 is the case number. The property is located at 125 East Southern Avenue, and the applicant's Trevor Ridley of Canai Architects and Interiors, LLC. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening. Once again, Lee Jimenez with the Community Development Department. Valley Fair Shopping Center, Pad B, is located on the northeast portion of the Valley Fair Shopping Center, which is located on the southeast corner of South Mill Avenue and East Southern Avenue in the CSS, Commercial Shopping and Services District. The applicant, Trevor Ridley, is planning to renovate the Pad B building to allow 3 tenant spaces. The scope of this use permit request is for the suite or unit closest to Southern Avenue. The drive-through window is proposed on the north end of the east elevation, with a drive-through lane provided along the south and east elevations. The menu board is proposed on the south elevation facing, facing south towards the shopping center, and the existing drive-through canopy will be replaced with a new canopy designed to match the proposed renovated design. A bank establishment has previously occupied this building in the past, and with it had a drive-up teller service on the east elevation, with the existing parking or canopy shown there on the east elevation. This use permit request intends to reestablish a drive-through use with a similar circulation pattern, only with improved access management of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And to date, staff has received 1 email inquiry in support of the project, And as indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for this use permit and supports this request subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. So to be clear, this is a building that's had drive-through in the past. It seemed to work in the past without any problems. Use was discontinued, so you lose the right to have drive-through, so I come back through our process to gain that right again through a use permit. In terms of the immediate area, any complaints or issues, there's a drive-through immediately to the south, the liquor store. In terms of anybody, in your opinion, that's impacted by loudspeakers or the drive-through activity, anybody, any sensitive uses near there?
As part of the public notification process, we do send out postcards to the tenant list provided by the applicant. So the tenants located to the south would have received the postcard and also would have seen the sign posted at the site as well. And today I only had that one inquiry from someone who was not a tenant, but is in support of the request. So to answer your question, no one has provided any input in opposition to where the menu board would be located.
And for the record, I see the properties to the east are non-residential uses.
Those are commercial uses, that's correct.
Okay, so we're not anybody's house next door. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Is the applicant here or the representative? Had a funny feeling you might be the guy. Welcome, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you for your time. My name is Trevor Ridley. I'm with K&I Architects, and I represent EC Valley Fair, who is the property owner. And I'm here to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Great. There are some conditions that staff has crafted for this use permit. There's 5 of them, including a shared parking application that's required. Do you have any questions about those conditions?
No, sir. They're all clear.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to have a seat.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on agenda item number 8, use permit for Valley Fair Shopping Center for drive-through, come on up. I'm not seeing anyone here to speak on that item. And as such, I have a recommendation for approval. There's some criteria that are discussed in the code and are necessary, including for the approval of a use permit, including any significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. Although the drive-through will create additional traffic, that's understood and acknowledged. It remains consistent with traffic that's generated in a shopping center of this nature. This is not considered a significant increase. This criteria is satisfied. Number 2, the nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare at level exceeding the ambient conditions. Again, this use is consistent with what's going on the property today and nearby, and emissions generated by other uses. So this is consistent and not expected to create any sort of nuisance. Contribution to deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values, which would be in conflict with the goals, policies, and objectives for rehabilitation, redevelopment, or conservation as set forth in the city's adopted plans or general plans. You know, this proposed use and renovation of the site is intended to benefit surrounding property values by providing a strong and vibrant and clean shopping experience, better utilization of the property, more efficient. This is the way we'd like to see these type of buildings and structures go. This criteria is met. Compatibility with existing surrounding structures. Again, the building has been there. It's in scale with height and proportion to the center. The use is compatible. It's a mixed commercial affair there. The criteria for compatibility is certainly satisfied. We do not expect any disruptive behavior or inside or outside of the premises, which would create a nuisance to the public or the surrounding area. There is adequate pedestrian circulation, adequate location for pedestrians, that open to the street and parking lot, as well as existing CC&R and lease agreements, terms that regulate the use of the site and behavior of its tenants. There's no history of problems or disruptive behavior. We don't have reason to believe they will commence with the approval of this use. As such, your request for use permit is approved, subject to the 5 staff conditions, including the shared parking agreement, Thank you for being here and for waiting, and good luck with the renovation. All righty. That is the last item on the June 6, 2017 hearing officer agenda. The next meeting will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, June 20th, 2017. Mr. Abrahamson, is there anything you'd like to discuss at this point or bring up?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, staff, for an excellent job today and your patience as well. I know it was a long one. Today's meeting is adjourned.
On my side, heaven and earth.